Welcome to Ungoogleable. Today I'm going to be sitting down with singer, writer, coach, Drew Hagar.
How's it going?
Drew, what's up, buddy? How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Thanks for doing this with me. And
it's a pleasure. Thank you.
It's another one of those things that what I like to talk about, a positive of social media, because I've been chatting and you and I have been communicating back and forth on social for like 2 years.
Absolutely.
And now we're in this Southern California makeshift mobile studio doing a podcast. So thanks for doing this with me. And
my pleasure.
Before you got here, I was listening to your demo tracks, and one of the things that I'm always impressed with by people is creativity. So I figured we start there. We have a lot to talk about.
Yeah, sure.
Maybe when did you start writing music and then performing it?
I started writing music around the same time I started performing it, which was less than 4 years ago. It was just a total kind of fly by the seat of my pants, really strange opportunity that came out of the blue. Never did I ever think I would have started doing this. Like, I was my entire life pretty much training martial arts, doing business and entrepreneurship, and then out of nowhere, I got a very rare and unique opportunity to go open for Chris Christopherson in Scotland. And obviously I took that opportunity and here we are. So
for all of you young bucks out there, one of the first remakes of A Star Is Born, Chris Christopherson was a beast.
Barbra Streisand, he's great.
Great movie.
Very sad film.
Yeah. But you say a crazy opportunity, right? And we could talk a lot about you taking advantage of that opportunity, and maybe one person would say that's lucky, and another person, like myself, would say, well, preparation led for you to be able to take that opportunity.
Absolutely.
Now, performing though, and then opening from in Scotland, and you had no stage experience?
Not with music, no. I mean, I'd grown up doing musical theater. I'd done some on-camera work. I had a radio show. I had fought in front of, hundreds of people before. So being center of attention like that was not a strange thing for me. It definitely wasn't something that I preferred. Like, I don't really like being the center of attention. I'm more of kind of a background type of dude. But with this stuff, that's not how it works, obviously.
No, it's if you ever read about when people talk about energy, extrovert, introvert, that sort of thing, would I be wrong to say that you're probably more comfortable if you're on stage than being in the front row? Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, that sort of thing.
An extroverted introvert, I would say.
Yeah, so 4 years, you've written, how many tracks have you written?
A lot. I've published maybe 10 or 12 tracks, but I've written, probably 70 or 80 songs by now.
Yeah, do you think there's a correlation with the human body expressing itself in relation to that? Because you're a martial artist, so you're used to, and you've been conditioned to moving the body, expression. I like to look at it as it's a dance, it's an art form.
Yeah.
So when you put the pen in your hand and you started writing and things were coming out, do you feel that there's a connection there?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm inspired by everything, but I'm inspired by my experiences first and foremost, like most people who write. And most of my experience in life has to do with martial arts or fighting. So, while it might not be a direct one-to-one thing, like I'm not like singing about throwing a perfect jab cross or some bullshit like that, but it is all connected. And I'd really like to say that training martial arts my whole life, and specifically fighting in the competitive arena and being a corner man and a coach and dealing with a lot of the mental aspects behind that has helped tremendously prepare me for playing on stage.
Yeah, you just had a guy, one of your athletes, fight and win, correct?
Yeah, I don't train him anymore, but
were you cornering him?
No, I didn't corner him this time. No, I actually haven't cornered a fight in several years, which is awesome because it's so high stress, man.
What's the difference between then when you're cornering and then when you're fighting?
Oh, geez.
Other than obviously the obvious, but like the stresses, are you as a corner, you're probably equally as invested.
Yeah.
But maybe talk about some similar stresses between the fighter and the corner.
I think that, at the end of the day, it might even be, everything pales in comparison to actually getting in the ring, fighting and competing, and all the mental gymnastics you have to do in order to do that and to do a good job and to excel. But as a corner person, it's like you're incredibly invested in your athlete. You want them to win. You also, like for me, like I have a very high amount of empathy. And so like I'm putting myself in their shoes when they're in there and I know what they're dealing with. Maybe like, for instance, take my friend Matt. Like, he's a young guy. When I first started working with him, I think he was probably like 16 years old. And he had a lot of the problems that come along with a late teenager, girl drama, family drama, school drama, all this shit. And he was trying to manage all these things while simultaneously getting ready to get in there with a grown man who was ready to smoke it, And there's a lot that goes into that. But as a cornerman and a coach, it's like I'm concerned about his physical well-being in there. I'm also concerned about like his emotional and mental well-being, and all those things are coalescing on fight night. So I got to worry. Oh, did I do a good job on the wraps? Oh, did I prepare him enough for this? Oh, am I being mentally positive? Am I extending that positive mental attitude before he gets in there? When he gets in there, it's like, oh, I have a minute between rounds to like work on, if there are any cuts, if there's any swelling, like giving him instructions. I got to pay attention not just to what he's doing right and wrong, but what his opponent's doing and how we can kind of exploit some of the things he's doing wrong. Like, there's so many things you have to be aware of. I'd say it's almost more challenging being in the corner than it is being in there. When you get in there, you just turn your brain off and you go with the training. And, depending on how well you did in your camp, you're going to do better or worse in the fight. But there's a lot more that goes into it when you're on the other side.
The winning and losing component when you were a fighter, and then watching maybe Matt.
Yeah.
Are you able to see in his, like, say a fight's going, because it's something that I always think about as a coach, watching an athlete, or when you were competing as well, watching an athlete that you're fighting against start to wilt and start to deteriorate.
You can see it.
And I know as the fighter, that's when you want to, put the pressure on.
Yeah.
But as a coach, when you start seeing your guy, and you brought up mindset, the wellness of the mind.
Yes.
Maybe share with us a little bit of tactics that maybe you would do as the coach that you think that would help that fighter in that fight, in that moment, that could get him maybe another round or maybe overcome that adversity.
That's a great topic. I think, again, that's where the empathy component comes in. Like, when you know your athlete, you know what their why is, like, no matter what we're doing, the why is what's going to help push us when we're feeling tired, right?
And you're creating that narrative all in camp with all your guys.
Yeah, and I mean, when I was coaching,
it's important, man.
Absolutely.
The intention behind why are you here?
Bingo.
Yeah.
And that's like, you need to know someone and understand who they are, what they are as a human being to really draw that out of them, especially in the middle of a fight. It's like they're just focused on, not getting hurt. A lot of times you go into it and your mentality is such like, I want to win, but then in the middle of the fight you get tired and suddenly it's like, I'm fighting to survive or I'm fighting not to lose. And that's when you see people usually wilting. So whatever it is that makes that person their unique why, that's what you have to get when you're in there in the corner. And you just got, it's different for everybody,
Have you seen I put it up on my Instagram, the Teddy Atlas video?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Bradley.
Incredible.
Oh my goodness.
Teddy Atlas is.
Did you hear how? And for the people watching this and listening to this, just go to YouTube and type in Teddy Atlas Fireman, and it'll come up with Timothy Bradley.
Oh, yeah.
But did you hear his tactics and what Atlas would do in the fight camp? Of like when he agreed to train Timothy Bradley, I think he only trained him a few fights, maybe just one. I don't know those numbers, but he allowed no media, no press, none of Bradley's former coaches, just him and Bradley for all of camp.
Oh, he was getting in there.
And deep.
Getting in there.
And you could see it because he was that fight. He was winning rounds. He was, it was a good fight.
Yeah.
And then he went out and dominated. Some people would say it was the best round of Bradley's career.
Right.
And you saw a coach Atlas know those buttons to push.
Exactly.
And it's almost like in relation to, because I never competed at an amateur boxing level, pro level, but I love boxing and I did it as a kid.
Yeah.
And so I can't speak from fighter experience at that level, but as an individual, being able to self-motivate now, because Atlas is an example of being able to, motivate his guy by tapping into that mindset of what drives Bradley,
right, especially
when he needed it. What's your thoughts on why some of us struggle with self-motivating? What if you could motivate one person, but sometimes you can't motivate yourself? So being able to get out of bed, do your thing. You've already coached today. You're doing an interview right now. It's not even 2 o'clock. No. So maybe share with us some insights on how you're able to self-motivate yourself to be productive.
It's just, for me, it's about not giving myself a choice. Like, what is that old business saying? You want something done fast, get a lazy person to do it. Like, they'll figure out how to do it, lickety split. And I'm not a lazy person by any stretch. I do a lot, but I view myself as lazy. That helps motivate me to constantly get up and do things. I don't give myself a choice whether I'm going to do it or not. I'm just like, this is my only option. It's maybe not a healthy mentality, but I always have the mentality of like, my back is against the wall. I either do this or I do nothing, and I'm a failure. And that's where negative self-talk can kind of be a positive motivator overall.
I totally agree. I know there's a guy recording a camera behind a camera, listening to the taking action, execution. We talk a lot about great ideas and how you could impact a lot of people, but everyone has great ideas.
Yeah,
it's taking action and executing on those ideas.
100%.
And I love how I've never heard. What book? Do you know what book that was? The one with the lazy?
No,
that's a great quote. I call myself lazy just because that allows you to get stuff done.
Yeah.
On the fight scenario, because I first contacted you by a mutual friend in Youngstown.
Yeah.
Brian Pugliese.
Yep.
And
Pugliese, shout out.
Yeah.
I love that dude.
Yeah, because his name Pugliese.
Yeah.
Is that what you call him, Pugliese?
Yeah, Pugliese. Yeah, I'm part of town, part Sicilian.
Yeah.
And obviously Youngstown has a big component.
Huge. Have you ever been?
I've been adjacent.
Okay.
I think the closest I got was like Akron.
You're close enough then. Yeah. Akron's pretty brutal as well.
Akron is kind of brutal.
But that's the thing about these small Rust Belt towns, man. They produce people who want to, if you could escape the mindset, I think it's a social construct mindset of people who stink and then make excuses.
Yeah.
Why am I in this town? They never get anything done.
It's a victim mentality.
Victim, for sure. And it's so easy to do. Pugliese, when I met Brian and when he brought you up, we actually were speaking about music.
Yeah.
And so my initial relationship with Brian was on music because he saw some videos and some that I put up years back, and then he was playing some new stuff that he was working on, and then that's how he brought you up. And I didn't even to find all these other layers about your relationship with him in a fight camp, in a fight camp, sparring.
Yeah, that's how we met.
And he probably had 20 pounds on you at least.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And high level experience.
That's right, giant killer, baby.
Yeah. Man. We gotta get Roots of Fight as a sponsor on the show because that would be dope.
Roots
Shout out to
Fight.
Roots of
Awesome
Fight.
shit. I love these shirts.
So going back, tracing your lineage as doing karate at 5, martial arts, and then you said your father was an amateur boxer. Mm-hmm. And then your grandfather was a pro boxer?
Yeah, uncle was I'm not sure if he was a Navy champ, but he had also competed in the Navy.
So is this, and then finding, and then the music component.
Yeah.
Did your grandfather play?
I'm not sure. I know that we have, I talked to my uncle about this a few weeks ago.
Yeah, is your uncle a musician?
My uncle was, I wouldn't say he was like a musician. I'm sure he played some instruments.
Okay.
Everybody in my family is very talented artistically and creatively.
Yeah.
We've all got that component.
And then was your father a lifelong musician?
Yeah. My dad started playing when he was a kid, and as soon as he got out of high school, he moved up to San Francisco.
And he did his thing.
He did his thing.
So he
was around the movement.
And he was in that draft. Yeah. He was taking action.
Oh yeah.
And like you said, you had the opportunity to perform in Scotland. Yeah. I mean, the opportunities that your dad had, and he took advantage of. But he never pushed you to play music until 30?
Quite the opposite.
That blows me away.
Quite the opposite. He actually wanted me to stay out of entertainment.
Okay.
But again, when I was growing up, my dad was at the end of his first real big musical career. He had fallen out of things with Van Halen. He was kind of struggling to get his solo career started again, which was what got him the spot in Van Halen. He was already really successful as a solo artist. A lot of people, I don't think, realize that.
Yeah, he definitely had albums, and people heard, we could sing some of his songs.
Movies, all kinds of shit. Yeah, right? I'm I got a speeding problem as well.
Yeah.
But no, just in general,
your father not pushing you.
Oh, yeah, not pushing me to be a musician. No, he wanted me to do something other than entertaining. He wanted me to be the family lawyer or a doctor or get a good, high-paying, stable job, because at the time he was going through quite a tumultuous set of circumstances in music.
How old were you?
I was probably 8 or 9 years old, I think.
And you were aware of all this in your dad's life?
Yeah.
What it was?
I was going out on tour with him, my parents got divorced when I was 7, and part of the thing was during the summer and during vacations, I would go out and be on the bus with him, stay in hotels, be doing all this wild shit.
With Van Halen?
With my dad, with Van Halen, with him as a solo artist, all sorts of shit.
Yeah.
It was really crazy, because I grew up pretty much with a very kind of middle class lifestyle with my mom, and I was living on ranches or other places out in the sticks in Central California, So then I would go out with my dad, and it was a totally different crazy life. And it was I was leading 2 lives.
With the tracks that you sent me, the one that you've written about, and I didn't share it with anyone.
Oh, thank you.
I'm sure you'll do that.
We'll get there. Yeah.
We were playing it, and man, the depths that you've gone to tell that story about your grandfather and then make it come to life through song using your body as the tool, I find that really impressive.
Thank you.
When did you get to the point with the music career that there's no doubt? Because you can't write something like that and doubt yourself.
I mean, to be honest, I never ever thought that I would play music. I never thought that I was a songwriter. I never thought any of these things. I've been writing poetry, and I've been a creative writer since I was a kid. When I was in high school, I won a couple placements in programs courtesy of my writing, and I was always encouraged by my English teachers and my professors to really double and triple down on that. I was a journalist for about 8 years. I wrote for SureDog.com.
You wrote for SureDog?
Yeah,
man, I was an early subscriber to SureDog.
On the forums,
MMA linker?
Yeah, man. Yeah, you got all this stuff. Yeah,
for sure, man.
That's where I got all my old, all the old Muay Thai fights, Japanese kickboxing fights.
You get all the updates.
Linker,
I still would go. Is MMA linker still around?
I have no idea.
That's so funny. 93, I was 11.
Yeah.
So that was the very first UFC. I watched that in my buddy's basement.
Same, I watched that with my pops.
And I've watched everyone ever since. Yeah. And so, do you still ever write on that side of the game, or just not enough
really?
time?
I mean, not enough time, and I'm still really good friends with a lot of people who are high-level journalists in the sport. Shout out to Casey Nestor over at All Elbows,
Yeah.
All my friends. I've worked at Pro Elite for a while, back when they were running the Elite XC Kimbo Slice thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and then that company obviously folded when
it wasn't Baczynski who came out the crowd.
Seth Petrozelli.
Yeah,
knocked him out. And nobody knew who Petrozelli was, and I was like, he was a
man.
monster.
Yes.
He was a gorilla.
And he wanted to be there.
Oh, yeah.
And
I was like, this is the worst matchup you could make.
For sure.
Yeah, it was a bad one.
That people don't understand that about fighters.
Yeah.
It's like they might get honey dick by the odds at Vegas, right? 12-1. Right. Dude, every fighter wants to be there for the most part. I mean, unless you have a broken down old, journeyman who's just fighting for the money. Exactly. But Seth came out the crowd and I think it helped everyone involved. Yeah. Because I remember people thinking that was going to break Kimbo, but he actually kept, he was able to evolve from that.
He kept working, but what it did break was the company.
Yeah, the company. So the company.
I lost my job.
Yeah, and that's you. So you worked for them.
Yeah, I worked for ProElite.com right out of college. I had a potential gig working for Sky Spirits.
So that broke the one fight.
The one fight that was what kind of. I mean, things were already starting to unravel without getting too much into.
Who was running it?
Corporate politics. So Showtime. It was an extension of Showtime, but Gary Shaw was our main fight branch, and then we had a couple old school corporate guys that were actually doing the corporate side of it. Yeah. And I worked in marketing and business development.
Yeah, that had to be a blast.
It was cool, man. It was a great first gig out of college. I turned down a really good gig with Sky Spirits to get that job because I wanted to do my own thing.
For sure. I
had already been working with Kawaba Tequila at the time, and then they sold the same year that I graduated college. So I was like, well, okay, I can either go work for Sky or I can try to get this other gig in MMA. And it turned out the guy who was running the marketing department was big fan of my pops, so even though I was trying to get away from it, I could not get away from it.
No, it's good. It's you brought up poetry earlier, and it's something that I've always loved as well. And did you ever have a point growing up where I'm talking the years maybe 7 to 18 that you felt that because you're also fighting and you said you did fencing, high level fencing.
I did a lot. I wouldn't say high level fencing, but I did a lot of stuff. Yeah.
Did you ever feel those years 7 to 18 that you had to hide intellectual side from your friends, or was that supported?
It was supported. I was very fortunate to fall in with a group of people who were all really, really into philosophy and heady existentialism, and that's a huge component of how I identify with the world. I don't know, I loved beat poetry and all the crazy, Tom Wolfe, Ken Kesey, kind of Hunter S. Thompson kind of life, gonzo journalism, all that shit. So that was what I was really about growing up, in addition to martial arts and all this other stuff. But most of my friends that I was hanging out with were into that too. So we would smoke blunts and take Adderall and take turns going around in a circle talking about weird, wild shit.
How old were you?
From about 15 to 18.
Yeah. Too weird to live, too rare to die.
Fucking A.
One of the best quotes of all time.
Yeah, man.
When you were, did you ever read any Rudyard Kipling?
Yeah.
Yeah,
dude. Oh,
he's one of my favorite writers, and my favorite poem of all time is the poem that he wrote about, a father and a son.
Yes.
Yeah, he also wrote the Jungle Book, but people know him for I guess being an imperialist and writing the Jungle Book, which really took off.
Yeah.
But he when I found that, I remember I watched it, I had known about the movie The Jungle Book, and something switched when I found that he had written, like he was a poet.
Yeah.
And I read I think I was 12, and I thought to myself, you could do both?
Yeah, right?
What? How did he do? And that was kind of like an example of the social construct where I grew up.
Totally.
And it changed my whole way of thinking, that one poem.
And it's hard to conceptualize being able to do all these really creative things at once. When you're a kid, I feel like you're kind of focused on one thing most of the time, and they kind of run you through that mental track of school, you know? So I don't think that that's... this whole idea that we can do all of these things and be wildly successful, that's not an idea that society is laying down all the time, you know? They kind of want you to stay
push you in a box.
Yeah.
And that's a great conversation to have, too, about the whole... I know there's a lot of smart people who are talking about maybe sending an 18-year-old to university isn't the right decision.
No.
Because there's so many other variables. Their family, do they have the financial support of people? And in America, I've been away for 6 years now, but you know, not every 18-year-old is ready to choose what they want to do.
Oh, 100%.
That shit would stress me out so much.
Same.
And even up until I didn't really know. I mean, I don't think anyone really knows what we're doing anyway, but like talking to people like yourself, writing about it, inquiring, learning, helping people.
Yeah.
Coach, that really has only been in my life maybe 5 years.
Wow.
So I had a big change around 30. So just those years of just wishing I knew what I wanted to do. I mean, how many other millions of people out there, and the teachers are telling them they have to do that? I think that's that's an issue.
But everything that you went through along the way there puts you in the perfect place to do exactly what you're doing right now.
Yeah,
you know.
I mean, those mistakes that we make when we're young and stupid.
Yeah.
Do you ever think back in how many maybe buddies of yours who made those mistakes, similar to the ones that you made, but for one reason or another, something didn't happen, you didn't get in trouble, and they did, and then that mistake haunts them for the rest of their life. I think
for sure.
I think about that a lot too.
It's about like cycles and self-awareness, right? We all have cycles. Sometimes we get them from our parents. Sometimes we get them from the places that we grow up. There's a million different ways to fall into these cycles. But having the self-awareness and the rationale to recognize where you're at and work your hardest to break out of it. That's the difference between, people who kind of don't make it and just end up staying where they grew up and not really doing much with their lives, and the people who actually go out and want to accomplish things and do things. I find the biggest difference between those people is just self-awareness. Some people have it, some people don't.
Do you do any sort of processes or daily kind of routines on that sort of thing?
Absolutely. I meditate, I journal. I mean, I have a lot of different mindfulness practices. And I really I grew up meditating a little bit through martial arts, but even as a kid with ADHD, it probably would have benefited me more to do it. But try telling like an 8-year-old spazzy kid to meditate, it's not going to work well.
and so the idea that the 8-year-old though, we put the 8-year-old in a box and says that, and we say that you can't play, you can't have energy, you have to sit down for 9 months out of the year as an 8-year-old.
It's crazy.
And if you don't want to sit down, we're going to give you medicine, quote unquote.
Right. And
now something's wrong with you. And now you need, and it's
there you
just
go.
back
the whole
to
social
cycles.
Construct.
It's we talk about it all the time. It's important though the people that we surround ourselves with. So you at 35, you have a lot going on, man. And this, our chat before this and everything that you've done, both athletically, intellectually. At 35, talk about that circle of influence. Do you have a large one? And is it larger now than it was at 30? And how do you choose the people that you put into your life?
I mean, I had to go through so 3 years ago now, I had a really crazy experience go down on the heels of touring with Chris, a relationship I was in, just destroyed. My life was in pieces for a bit, and I had to rebuild myself. And in doing so, I had to develop all of these mental practices. I had to cut out a lot of toxic people in my life, and I had to really take a good look at myself and cut out the aspects of my life that weren't healthy, that weren't serving me, that I was kind of ashamed of, and taking ownership of those things and really choosing to love myself was a huge, huge thing for me. And it's my entire life before that, and then my entire life since then. And now it's my social circle. I mean, I still have a pretty wide network of people that I would call friends, but my actual social circle, the people I keep around me all the time, very small. And it's people that are, you know, very positive, that are working towards goals, that are actively doing things, that are inspiring, that are driven, that are very intelligent, very into philosophy, and, you know, just in general, they're positive people that inspire me. And I think that's a big place where a lot of people could kind of level up. They're keeping company that's not really, I don't want to say not serving them, because people are not commodities, but it's not serving their best self, you know?
It's great advice to anyone out there who feels that they want to make a change.
Yeah.
And
change starts with you, you know?
Yeah, 100. Are you familiar with Trent Shelton? Do you listen to anything? He played in the league, played in the NFL, but he's a speaker now, and he helps a lot of people with his words of wisdom, and he talks about that, protecting your peace.
Yes.
And sometimes words just resonate to us, and that when I heard him speak on that, it just really hit home. Yeah. Because how often are we so reckless with our own peace, we just give it away.
Yeah.
And we allow people in, and it's just detrimental to our well-being.
For sure, and especially in some of these really big urban centers in America, like Los Angeles, where people are looked at as commodities. It's not like, who are you? Like, blah, 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 this, that. It's like, what do you do? What can you do for me? You know, and that's the biggest thing in the city. So it's really hard to kind of take a lot of interactions with people at face value, you know?
Yeah, I lived in Long Beach for 6 years, and I used to think, and then, you know, lived in Vegas, now Australia. But the older I get, the more I realize I like what you said, where people are not commodities, service. Yeah. And the checklist, though, that people will go down. Where'd you go to school? Where'd you grow up? Yeah. Where do you work at? What car do you drive? As soon as you start hearing that, in my head, I hear, I'm out. I'll have a smile, but that is it. Because you're aware and you have a gauge of how someone thinks.
Totally, man.
And it's wise to, I think, if you do think like that, to change that, because you can't attract new sort of thoughts.
No, and the people you find showing up in your life are going to be cut from that same cloth, and they're generally toxic people. You don't want those people around. They're just generally looking to be some type of emotional vampire or something, or, you know, just take something rather than give. Like, sure. I'm a giver, I can tell you're a giver, like, and there are a lot of people trying to take.
You talk about your pops in the 80s in the draft.
Yeah.
Like, just being in that, man. Like, it's important in relation to thinking differently, too.
Absolutely.
The topic about songwriting, and we spoke a bit about it off the record, that almost moment of awe when you finish one.
Yeah.
And you listen to it, and I don't know if you have a tradition, maybe stepping out of the studio. I knew a guy would have a cigarette. But talk about that sort of, you know, feeling when it happens, when you know you've just written one, it sounds amazing. It's like a high endorphin rush.
It's great because, like, I found that, at least from some of my better songs that people seem to enjoy, I know right away when I write them that it feels like a good song, you know? And then, because I usually write just by myself with an acoustic guitar, and I'm not a great guitar player, but I'm more of a melody guy and a lyric guy. And so when I write a song, like last night, literally, like, I was up till 4 a.m. because I got an idea around 12:30, and it came out, and then I just kept shaping it, and by 4 a.m. I had a song that's pretty much done with good melody, you know, some chord changes. The lyrics, I went over them a second time this morning, and, like, I'm thinking the lyrics are done on this one, you know. But that's, like, the best songs usually just pop out. And I've heard this from a lot of people, like, they just kind of pop out of the ether. When I was done with that last night, I had no fucking idea where it came from, what it came from, but it just kind of, you know.
So it's like we're
conduit.
You were a radio dial.
Yes.
And you had tuned in to this frequency.
Yes.
That's always around us. The Greeks wrote about it. They call it the muse.
The muse.
It's tapping into it and dialing in. It's staying in that, like, synchronicity state.
Yes.
And most people.
That's the pulse of the universe, man.
And
you can follow that by paying attention to certain things.
Awareness.
Awareness.
It's a beautiful thing.
It is.
It's like you could get there shadow boxing.
Yeah.
Like I don't. It's hard to do for me, at least, because I'm not that skilled. But every now and then.
Yeah, you got some hands, man. You got some nice hands. I've seen it.
Thanks, man. I'm working. I always tell myself, if I keep working at this, where I will be in a year, I'll be better than I am right now. So, and that's with anything, writing. interviewing, speaking, just being a human.
Yeah, dude, 1% a day is better.
Yeah, wanting to be better.
Yeah.
But that song, though, last night, that moment, you said that, you know, once you're aware, you start seeing signs. So at 12:30, you didn't tell yourself yesterday when you woke up that you wanted to wait till 12:30 to write a song?
No. But the muse, for me at least, the muse always comes at night, late at night, when I'm tired and close to going to bed. I find that like that's when the veil is lifted and you're kind of more apt to be creative. When you just wake up in the morning, like I wake up with lyrics a lot of time, or I'll wake up with like a melody in the song, and I keep a pad right by my bed. I don't sleep next to my phone, but like my phone's ready to go to just do a little demo recording when I need it, you know? And it's like either really late at night, and like, you know, I was a medicinal cannabis user for a long time, and like, you know, I still dabble, and like sometimes, you know, I'll go home and like people have a beer, I'll have a little fucking smoke or something, and then some ideas will just pop out.
Art,
you know?
sure.
Art, that's how it happens.
It's exactly how it happens. And I'm a proponent of that. When I lived in Long Beach in 2005, I would kayak to my weed doctor.
That's amazing.
This is 15 years ago. You know, I don't kayak anymore in Sydney, and I don't have a weed doctor anymore. But I remember I had first moved out here from Pittsburgh, and I thought, I was like, what? Hold on.
Yeah, right?
Part of my personality is like, I like doing things just to see if I could do it.
Yeah.
And sometimes it doesn't suit me, and sometimes it does. And that was one of them. I was like, I don't really smoke a lot, but I want to be able to tell my friends I just kayaked to a weed doctor.
There you go.
Who are in Pittsburgh in the snow.
It's a great fucking story.
One of those things. It was one of those things. On the premise of your music and filing it and where you're putting it up at, and because I'm a loyalist, man.
Yeah.
And that song I keep talking about, it's amazing. Where could everybody find your
Lucky
music?
One?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Especially what you did with the lyrics about the angel falling through the power lines. Yeah. How did that come about?
Man, I was collaborating with a friend of mine named Daniel, and we co-wrote that song together. He came to me with an idea for what it could be with a couple chords and just a few small lyrics, and then we fleshed it out. And that
essentially, when you did your voice in the very first part, how you sang it, and you carried that tune into, I don't know if that's called a crescendo, I don't know what it was called, but it's captivating right off the bat.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a good story.
That song, I talked about cycles earlier, and that song is about being locked in your own toxic cycles, and not, to me at least, when I wrote it, those lyrics to me meant essentially that when you're a broken individual suffering from your trauma and you're not aware of it, you're constantly inviting in other people with that trauma to your life, whether you know it or not. And so you might be looking for an angel, but like that angel's going to be incredibly damaged since you haven't healed. And then once you start your process of healing and develop awareness of the self about that, then you'll start attracting people who've done the work as well. You know? And it's like, I don't think as a person who suffered from intense trauma, you're ever going to meet people, especially romantically, that didn't suffer from intense trauma too, but those people will have done the work and will start healing once you heal yourself.
You can't love if you don't love yourself, and it's the fish. My favorite quote about the whole surrounding ourselves with what we're attracting is a fish is only as deep as the water it swims in.
There you go.
And an ex-girlfriend told me that one. We're still friends.
All right, good.
Yeah, it's one of my rules. Like if I don't date anyway, my relationships are not the premise of the show, but the songwriting component, obviously I'm really compelled to talk to you about the music.
Yeah.
Who are the inspiration side of things? Who do you listen to? Or do you listen to people? And who's one of your favorite songwriters?
I'm a huge fan of music in general, and I always have been. Like I said, I had a radio show for 4 years, and even back then when I was like 15, I still had crazy eclectic taste in music. For me as a songwriter, I grew up listening to people like Bob Dylan, obviously. I think that's pretty apparent in my early stuff. But for me, it doesn't get much better when it comes to melody and just general vibe. And guys like Jeff Buckley, Tom York, I'm very into that school of singing, of like those guys. In terms of songwriting, like I'm a huge fan of Noel Gallagher, like vintage classic Noel Gallagher, Oasis, not the bullshit we got in America, but like the real stuff.
The earlier stuff.
Yeah, the earlier stuff.
even still, I go back to that because he was really influenced by the Beatles, obviously, and like everybody else, I'm a huge Beatles fan, huge fan of the Stones. But in terms of my own writing, like definitely more so like Neil Young, Bob Dylan, Jeff Buckley, Tom York.
Yeah, you know? I love the music. Are you familiar? Before you got here, I was playing Joshua Radin. Do you know who that is?
That sounds super familiar.
Not mainstream. He's from Cleveland. I think he's probably in his early 40s now.
Huh.
So at 30, I'm probably butchering the story a bit, but the heartbeat of it is at 30, he's in New York City, and he's just working his way to learn how to play this 6-string guitar. And he gets pretty good, and he's busking now in the subways. And month after month, he's playing, people are walking by him. Number one rule of real estate, location. So he stays in this spot with no intentions behind it. And an actor who was in one of the famous shows at the time takes one of his demos that he had from the subway station, gives it to the producer on his show, and then fast forward 5 years, he'd written like 60 of his songs were in the show Scrubs.
Wow.
Yeah, so I don't watch the show, but Joshua Radin, if you like songwriting and simplicity of just a 6-string guitar, and how he's able to match his voice with the simplicity of the music, but makes that sound complex.
Yeah.
Great one to throw in.
That's what it's all about. Because like these days, I feel like a lot of people hide behind production. And you know,
my favorite band's doing this right now. I love Bon Iver.
Justin Vernon.
Genius,
dude.
People don't talk about it as much, but he's. I know you have to evolve, and he's getting very experimental. But yeah, I wish he would just go back to like the first few when it was just him and those risks he would take with his falsetto and like, what is this guy? Amazing dude.
I mean, like, it's a lot like relationships, right? Like people say never stop dating. You know, like you got to do the things that made that person fall in love with you in the first place. You can't get complacent. And it's like that with musicians too. A lot of times people they get a little success, and they get away from what got them there in the first place by trying to maintain it, by trying to play to trends and doing all this stuff. And it's unfortunate, man, but when you have a good song and you can just sit there on the instrument you wrote it on, like play it on piano, just you and the piano, your voice and the music, or like your voice and the guitar, that's a really fucking good song. You don't need to hide behind production. And if you get the right producer, that song's going to be amazing. That's what I'm about. I want to get down to the truth of it, the truth of just like the melody and the chord changes, and just you could be able to sit around a campfire and play it. It's a great song. Or you can have a really good producer work it. You can play it in a fucking stadium, wherever, and it's going to be a great song regardless. That's what I'm about. I want to write songs like that.
That's amazing. There's beauty in the authenticity of the process.
Yeah.
Not hiding behind like the instrumentation or I don't want to say gimmicky, but whatever you got to add in. But are you the type of person that has 1,000 songs you just listen to, or do you have like? Because I love music too, and I do listen to a lot of different styles. Everything from I'll listen to Tupac one day, and the next day I'm listening to Joshua Radin. Yeah. But I do have like 5 to 10 just go to. I can listen on repeat.
Yeah.
Song after. Do you have any of those songs?
Yeah, absolutely.
What are some of those?
Right now, I mean, I draw a lot of inspiration for production elements from the stuff that I'm listening to. Not just at the moment. Like I've always wanted to write a song like XYZ, like whatever, not an actual XYZ, but I mean, you know what I'm saying?
I think Coldplay has a song XYZ.
YYZ, but right now, like man, I've been banging that new Sturgill Simpson record. Like a lot of people are hating on it. I think it's one of the coolest fucking things out there. It's like a weird fusion of psychedelic honky tonk disco or some shit. And I'm sure he's getting lambasted by the media right now, but like whatever, dude, whatever. Pitchfork doesn't like your record. Oh no. Yeah. Like there's millions of people out there who do. So fuck all the haters, regardless of whether they're big haters or small haters. But I really, really appreciate it when people take a really bold risk like that. I mean, like, what is that guy going to win an award in the country sector now? I mean, if Spacey Casey was able to do it with basically a disco record, I think Sturgill could probably do it too. But it's just really interesting how all of the barriers in the music industry in terms of genre are being just pulled down now. You have, Old Town Road and shit, all these things that are happening.
It started happening, though. I remember when, like, Nelly and Tim McGraw came out with that song over and over again. People were going crazy.
Yeah, man.
I'm surprised it stopped for, I thought that was going to be sort of the kind of foot in the door of breaking down these kind of premises of what music should be.
I thought so, too.
It's but hopefully that happens more and more. Collaborations. Did you hear Kanye's new one with Bon Iver and Francis and the Lights?
Yeah.
I can't stop listening to that.
Man.
I just found out about Francis.
Really?
Yeah, he's from. How artistic is that guy? He does dance to the videos. I love that dude.
It's so cool. That's like,
and he has a small. No one knows about him. Like his Instagram, he's at 3,000 people. Hopefully he gets the success.
Yeah.
My own sort of selfishness as a fan. Stay small.
Right? Yeah. Well, I mean, that's usually when people do their best work. They're hungry, you know?
Yeah.
And things change, man, nowadays, especially with the way that the social media machine has grown and kind of is taking over our own physical reality. Like, people get lost in the sauce, man. You get a little bit, and all of a sudden, things are different, you know? So I hope that everyone can have that self-awareness to maintain that level of musicianship and not fall down these kind of like tropey genre traps working with big producers and stuff like that, you know? It's a tricky game, man.
And you lose the art because then you're just looking for clicks and follows and that sort of thing. Drew, man, tell this camera where we can follow you, where we can listen to music, stay up to date with all that you do, your writings, and, you know, how can we find you?
You can check me out on drewhagar.com. It's got all my tour dates, music stuff, merch, and pretty much any info you could want. I've got a mailing list on there so we can keep you up to date with all the new things I'm doing, because I don't just do music, I also do a lot of other things. But if you want to check me out, drewhagar.com, drewhagarsos.bandcamp.com specifically for the music, or drewhagar_SOS on Instagram.